Hey, everybody, welcome back to Path to Play. It's Valentina.
In Rory.
Today, we're going to be talking about what guest playing is. You might have heard of it, you might have not, but today we'll be talking all about it and giving a few examples from our experiences. Before we begin talking about that, you might have noticed we were gone last week. So, our question of the day today is actually about our trip last week to Washington, D.C. What was your favorite part about our travels and adventures in DC?
All the museums were super cool, which obviously that's what it's known for. But I think the National Gallery of Art was my favorite. I definitely didn't go last time I went because I was like 10. So I think that was probably my favorite thing that we saw.
Yeah, I was going to put that one very high up in my favorite things that we did. I would also say that the food we tried was all very solid.
Yes.
So if anyone has any plans to go to DC, definitely reach out to us for some very solid recommendations. I also really enjoyed just the general area of Adams Morgan. I also liked the National Mall at night. It was very desolate and it was
Hmm.
cool. We rode our scooters at night and nobody was there. It felt kind of weird, but there's lots to see and do in DC if you're planning a trip there anytime soon.
Yeah, would highly recommend.
All right. So, what is guest playing in the world of youth soccer? Let's talk about it.
So, guest playing is when your child fills in for a different team for a short period of time. It doesn't mean that they're joining that team, switching clubs, or being recruited. It's just a temporary chance to help another team and get some extra playing experience. This can come in the form of playing for a different team within the same club for your athletes. So, either a different level within the same club, or a different age group, or a completely different club. To boil it down, it basically just means your kid stays on their normal team, but gets to jump in and play somewhere else for a day or a weekend or some short amount of time.
That sounds kind of cool. And why would you, as a parent, want your athlete to do something like that?
I mean, there's definitely a lot of reasons. I think some would be a step up in competition if the team above wants to see your kid and they reach out and say, "Hey, can they play in this tournament?" That's obviously a great opportunity for them. Just more games sometimes, especially in the summer, especially at younger ages when you have kids gone, teams just need more players. So it's a good chance to just play more games.
Yeah, I do remember in some tournaments when I was younger, some teams definitely didn't have the right amount of subs and players would get tired or they'd have to keep rotating. And obviously, this was back when there weren't any sub rules when we were younger, but you could definitely tell that they could use some extra numbers. So I could see why some teams would offer spots for guest players to come and be part of the team for a day or a tournament or something like that. So can anyone do it? Can anyone choose to guest play?
Yes, everyone can do it. It depends on kind of the scenario, but usually a coach will reach out to you or to your coach asking for players or something like that, or they'll post something on your club's website saying like, "Hey, we need players." And it's super common in summer tournaments like you were talking about because a lot of the time these tournaments have very flexible rosters, so you can add and drop players because they're not as formal as a league, where usually the league will have a set roster and you can add or drop just a few players. But these tournaments in the summer, you'll definitely see a lot of teams getting guest players helping out.
That makes sense. Did you ever guest play?
I did guest play, not a ton, but when I was younger, I would definitely guest play with my brother's team a lot. We were in the same club, and I would obviously go to most of his games, or they would be after mine or before mine, something like that. So if they needed people, usually I would step in. But most of my guest playing came when I was playing for the second team or the B team at my club, probably from like 12 to 15 years old. And a lot of this was playing up with the A team when they needed players due to injury or other reasons. And this was mostly in tournaments. And this was actually super helpful for me because I had been on the A team, then got moved down. And so having the chances to go play up again with them was really good for my confidence because I remember playing in those games and thinking, I'm as good as these guys. I don't feel out of place. And that definitely helped me with my motivation and drive to get back to that team.
Yeah, I could see that being a space where you can play a little bit more freely. You don't feel the same pressure that you feel when you're in tryouts or you're fighting for a spot in your team. It's just kind of back to the basics. You're reigniting your passion for the game and you're getting extra games in. So, was the process to guest play for teams like your older brother's team, was that a pretty seamless process? Would you expect paperwork? Do you go online into a portal? Or what makes it easy or hard to do for a player or a parent?
Yeah, I know that definitely at younger ages, as long as you had, I don't know if you remember this, but the little laminated club cards, did you guys have those for when you were a kid?
Oh, wow. Just had a very intense flashback now that you were saying that. I think we did.
Yeah, so we had them, and it basically was that you were registered for your team and your
Yeah,
club.
I
And
remember now.
so if you had that, you could play for any team in your club, which usually is how it works. So you can then obviously, like, you can't play against younger kids. So, if
Oh,
as long as
okay.
you're staying in your age group or playing up an age
Uh-huh.
group or 2, at least in more informal things like tournaments where you're already registered for the club, it's super easy. So you can just hop back between teams. If you're playing in a full tournament, you might have to sign up for that tournament and pay the tournament fee,
Right.
but I don't think it's a lot of paperwork.
Okay, or just big hurdles and processes that you have
Right.
to go through.
Yeah, it's meant to be that kind of short-term, low bar of entry sorta thing.
And you would say the process usually begins with the coach asking for players because they're in need of players, right? It's not something that, for example, in your case, your parents were asking around or you were asking around for opportunities. It's more often than not coming from the coach that needs players. Is that right?
Yeah, in my experience, that's right. It would usually be an email out to all the teams for that age group or like an age group down, just saying, hey, I know you guys don't have a tournament. Are you guys free for the weekend of July 8th or whatever, you know? And that's how usually it would happen for us. I know that we also, though, had people who lived in farther out cities. So we definitely had some guys from Eastern Washington, which is probably a 2 to 3 hour drive from Seattle,
Hmm.
come guest play in tournaments when we needed people for 2 reasons. 1, because we needed people, and 2, because the coaches were definitely interested in these guys, and it was a good opportunity for them to come out and play games and get a lot done in just one single trip. Because obviously they can't just come to practices and things like that.
Okay. Yeah, that makes sense. And so ultimately, it seems like it's a lot easier to do if it's an internal team player exchange. And when I say internal, I mean within the same club.
Yes, that definitely makes it easier because you're already registered. The coaches know each other, so it's easier to
Hmm.
get it all organized, and you probably already have the jersey, so
Right. And then potentially the only logistical thing you would have to sort out would be perhaps a tournament fee or a referee fee. I don't know, something like
yeah,
that.
something like that.
Okay. That sounds like it's pretty simple to do then. I do remember now that you're describing some of your experiences that we also obviously had many different levels within age groups and usually on weekends if there weren't any games, like if there were free weekends, sometimes we would have organized scrimmages across
Mhm.
different grade groups, so I think the coaches were all pretty familiar with who was on what team and what players they might be looking to borrow for these kinds of tournaments where they might need some extra players. And as you mentioned, an email goes out. They're kind of trying to figure out who's available for certain weekends. And I do remember some players were able to get extra games in for different teams. And I think all experience is good experience. So good opportunities for players who might be open to it.
Yeah, definitely. And especially for those younger ages, it's really good if your kid is maybe a little bored on the team they're playing on and they get this chance to try playing with new players, new coach, can see if it's time for a change, something like that. And also just more touches is always good. So that's always going to help your athlete grow.
So, from your perspective, then, what was your experience as a guest player? How did you feel? Did you like it? Did you find it was a little bit hard to integrate with whatever team you're playing with, or did it feel like a little bit more of a low stakes experience and even a good experience to have because you might be getting exposed to different styles of play you have to adapt to?
Well, when I was younger and when guest play up with my brother's team, that was more just fun because I was
Yeah.
just super excited for it, you know?
Hmm.
But then definitely later on, when that scenario I was talking about when I would be guest playing with the A team, I think that was I actually really enjoyed it just because it was so low stakes for me. I wasn't on the team, and if I didn't do well, what were they gonna do? Send me back to the team I was on? So it was just kind of fun, and I was able to play pretty freely and enjoy it, I think.
Okay. And I could see how somebody who might be trying to work on their skills or learn from other players or just be there for the fun of it because, they need you more than you need them at that
Exactly,
point, you're
exactly.
going to enjoy it a little bit more than if you're trying to get scouted.
Mhm.
I do remember the time I guest played when I was a little bit older, probably around my junior year of high school. It was early junior year, perhaps between those summer tournaments. I remember my experience was playing with a completely different club, and it was at a showcase. And it was specifically an opportunity to guest play one because the other team needed numbers. And then two, obviously, you're opting into guest play if you're trying to get extra games in to get
Right.
extra looks from college coaches. So I do remember I was a little bit nervous when going on to the team and, knowing that I had to perform well because there were going to be coaches there. But I think once I realized that it was supposed to also be an opportunity for me to continue gaining experience and then getting more games than I would have without that extra weekend, it was a little bit easier to just, like you said, play freely and try, I don't know, perhaps new things on the field and figure myself out potentially in a different style of play. And think usually it's easy to integrate and just feel like you're a part of the team because most of the time those clubs are going to be quite similar to the club that you're on
Right.
because all of them are going through that same intense recruiting process and your coaches are at the showcase, so similar environments, similar team dynamics. So I do remember was a little nervous at first. It was kind of weird to play in a different uniform, different coach, and not really sure what my place was, but I think the whole idea is to just get on the field and play your heart out, I guess.
Yeah, I think that makes a ton of sense, and it's super normal to take a little while to settle in, but I think once you do, it is a great chance to just get a new experience and enjoy it. You also do bring up a really good point. I forgot to touch on this earlier, but like your experience guest playing for a team at a tournament that is kind of like a college showcase is also a legitimate thing and definitely happens, and that's also a great thing about guest playing is you can get pretty much free college looks.
And for that process, that also started from my coach, and that was from, I would assume, his connections or an email out from that coach from the other club. I think it was Surf from California, and it was just a matter of they reached out, needed players, and our whatever coach may or may not have extra players like me who were on commit at the time, looking for minutes, looking for looks, can respond back and say, "Oh yeah, I have an extra player that we don't have a tournament this weekend." And I think it was also because the showcase was in Phoenix,
Mhm.
so obviously it made sense for someone from the Phoenix area to
Right.
go.
Yeah, a lot of the coaches know each other, so it is the more often than not that coach to coach connection that really gets these going.
Yeah, and I think also even if they don't know each other, the tournaments will facilitate those processes of, yeah, we'll allow guest playing because I think that's what you were talking about earlier of tournaments with registered teams will likely allow guest playing to occur.
Did you have any similar guest playing situations like I did when you were younger?
Yeah, I also played a few times with my sister's team, and my sister is older, so that's
Mhm.
why I was able to play up, which was fun and also useful because I eventually did have to go play with a lot of the girls on that team since there was a whole age group change. Once that was in place the following year, I ended up playing with a lot of the girls who birth year wise were the same year as me, but were a grade above. So my sister, moved up as well. But anyways, long story short is that I played with my sister's team and it was fun. Our club then was a pretty close community, and so everyone kind of knew one another. We were local to the area, so it was fun. And it was nice to get some firsthand experience with what would be my future team. And I think that was the main guest playing experience that I had. But again, it was very easy to do because
Right.
all the coaches know each other. They're usually working together, they're organizing scrimmages together, probably training side by side, sometimes even combining trainings for bigger drills. So when people want extra players for some games, you'll probably ask the people that are available. Or in this case, I'm sure they looked at us and said, "Oh, great, they have a sibling, they have to be at the
Right.
field anyways, so just
Uh-huh.
call them in."
Exactly. That's an easy one.
Yeah. And I can see also why guest playing would be good for the team as a whole too, because you might be bringing in a player with a different set of skills that might add a little bit of a different dynamic to the team or might expose the team to different qualities, things like that. So it's a nice thing to be able to do if you are able to.
Yeah, I think it's definitely a cool thing in youth soccer and definitely a win-win for the players and the coaches. That's all we have time for today, guys, but we really just wanted to give you an overview of what guest playing is. I'm sure you've probably heard of it or had guest players on your team. If you guys have any specific guest playing questions or advice, totally feel free to reach out to us and we can go more in depth on that.
Yeah, or if you have even a bad experience to share about
Mhm.
guest playing, those definitely happen. So please feel free to share your experience if you're open to it, because those are also valuable thoughts to share with us. But
Very true.
yeah, hopefully you haven't had one of those.
All right, everybody. We'll see you next week.
Thank you. See you next week.